The Dachman 87 SE comes in three very attractive finishes: vintage cream, black, and gold. And I really like the gold one because it's different. It reminds me of the 70th anniversary U87 from 1998. I'd wear this on a chain around my neck to go clubbing, but you're listening to the 87 SE with no EQ on it. And here is the U87Ai with no EQ on it. And differences aside, you can sum it up actually this way too. Car payment, mortgage payment, right? So one of the things I really like about the 87 SE is this incredible value for the price. Because when you're looking for a U87 sound for under $500, you're going to have a tough time finding anything that sounds quite as on point as this. Let's talk about it.
From the mind of Mark Yoshimoto Nemkov.
Knowing what tools to use and how to use them is key to leveling up your voiceover career. And I'm already hearing from people who say that just the first few chapters of my book, The Modern Voiceover Career Owner's Manual, has helped them book more work. Because success in voiceover doesn't start here. It starts here. So pick up a copy of my new book, The Modern Voiceover Career Owner's Manual, available in paperback, hardback, and Kindle. So again, here is the Dachman 87 SE with no EQ on it, and here is the U87Ai with no EQ on it. Now, the U87Ai is, of course, the AI version, the modern version of the U87 that has it has higher polarization of the capsule, which makes it more sensitive, lower self-noise, but it changes the tonal profile a little bit. There is a more extended high end. And the one thing that people love about the vintage U87, which is what the Dachman was modeled after, is that the vintage U87 just kind of has a warmer tone. It doesn't extend so much in the high end, right? It rolls off really more around 12, 13K. And as a result, you really feel more of that mid-range. So when you're talking about like what makes an 87 sound, right? There are really three key factors here in what makes that tone. And the first big factor, right, is that sound of that low mid, that beautiful sound really that exists between 100, 300, 100, 400 hertz. And the way that the U87 presents that in kind of a way that it makes you feel bigger. It makes you sound bigger. It makes you present better, and it grabs more attention because it focuses that resonance in your voice, which lives down there, and it brings it forward in a way that makes it a little bit more flattering to your overall sound. There's also the mid-range, right? The upper mid-range. And on the U87Ai, that really primarily happens. There's a really nice push on the AI between 2 and 3K is where the main focus is, where I hear it most of my voice. But what I like about the Dachman is it seems to be a little bit more. It seems that presence area where it seems to present a little bit more forward happens a little bit more in like 2 to 4K. I can feel it like extending a little bit higher. Overall, when you're talking about the AI, you're talking about a really, when they say a balanced sound, it means that your voice, when it comes out of there, yes, it's mid-forward, but it doesn't feel like it is. It feels like the way you want to sound, right? It doesn't sound like it has been manipulated. It just sounds like a really flattering version of your voice. So the low mid and the upper mid are really what make that 87 sound work. And what I like about the 87 sound is that it doesn't so much, it's not changing your voice. It just makes you sound more inevitable. And that's why it really presents so well for voiceover. Now, the third thing about an 87 that really helps define its overall character is really more of this kind of high end, where the high end it rolls off early. right? It does. It doesn't have the extension of some of the more modern mics that feel like they really have a lot more high-end detail. And that early roll-off, again, helps you push your mid-range out front. And the mid-range, of course, is the most important part of your sound for voiceover. The mid-range is what translates. The mid-range is really where all of the nuance and emotion live. And it's supported by the nuance that is captured in the low end and the detail that's captured in the high end. So when you talk about the 87 sound, it is, I don't want to characterize it so much as powerful. It's just, it's present, and it's not in your face so much as it is like in your space. And that's what I love about it. And so far, I feel like that the Dachman 87 SE is like really capturing a lot of the 87 essence, and at a price point that is ridiculous. So who is this mic for, right? Who is the 87 SE for? Because you can EQ it. Your EQ is going to be different from my EQ because of your room, your voice, your rig, et cetera, et cetera. But you can EQ it to get really close, as I showed in a previous video. I only used 2 EQ points, right? 100 hertz and 8.4K. And, if I had used something else, if I had used a more comprehensive EQ, you could really dial in and get it if you want. So I think if you're looking for the 87 sound, I think this is a really great option, because it does the tone lives in that 87 neighborhood, like in a really convincing way. And even just aside from comparisons, because the thing is, every mic is compared to the U87. That is just the inevitability of microphones. But what I really like about it is when you judge it on its own sound, right? Not does it sound like an 87, but does it sound good? It really does sound good. And I find that this sound is very flattering on my voice. So I think that this is a great choice for voiceover. I do think I'm going to go out on a limb and say this is the sound of voiceover, right? What you really want, what you're looking for. And especially, I think it works for all different kinds of voiceover. I think if you can do narration on it, you can do character voice stuff on it, you can do commercial stuff on it, I think it fits the bill of what you want an 87 for. So if an 87 is not necessarily in the cards, right, for you, and you're looking for that 87 sound and you're looking for options, there are many vintage 87 clone options out there. And a lot of the ones I've heard have fallen, kind of short. I just don't really think that they capture, like, really there's an essence in there, right? There's a mojo in there. And it's really the way the sound all comes together. Sometimes you hear a mic and it's like, oh, that's got an 87 like upper mid. It's got that purr in the 87, that 87 purr in the upper mid. I mean, you have that here, but you're also getting that nice low end. You're getting the combination of the low, the mid, and the high in a formula that really works. So Josh at Dachman really cracked the code, I think, on this one. The implementation of the vintage U87 circuit on the Dachman 87 SE is really well done. Here, let me just open one up for you really quick, and I'm going to show this to you. So this is the cream one. Dachman sent over all 3 colors, so it's really neat. So let me just show you the implementation of the circuit here. Can I get it? I don't know if I can get it really to focus on it. But what you're looking at here is really a 1-to-1 implementation of the vintage U87 circuit. Obviously done with, different components, but high quality components. They're all high quality components. They didn't skimp here. And you can see this big cap right here. This is at C7. If you are a DIY nerd like me, C7 on your U87, vintage U87 is a very important consideration, because that really affects the tone in the low end. And the choice of this film cap here, right here, really nice one. I mean, really the formula works, right? I'm not going to break it down piece by piece. And, Josh said that the transformer is a custom job for them. It's a small transformer, right? But it is getting it's getting the job done. And I feel like it's really nice and clean also in the low end. You're not getting. One of the things about the 87 is you get a little bit of that grit down there in the low end, and it's nice. But, I think in voiceover, a lot of times you want your low end to present like really cleanly. And I feel like there's a really nice, clean presentation here. And also, it being a cardioid-only microphone, you get a kind of a tighter capture because in a multi-pattern mic in cardioid, you have two capsules, you have two diaphragms, right? Front to back. And what they're doing is they combine together to make cardioid. And you do that you're not eliminating all the voltage from the back diaphragm. You have to leave a little bit of voltage on it. Otherwise, when you switch patterns, you get a pop because of the onset of current, right, going through the capacitor. And you don't want that. You don't want anybody to pop their signal, right? So even though you may get a click, you don't want to pop, right? You know the difference, right? So there is a tiny bit of voltage when you switch into cardioid that remains on the back diaphragm. And that actually allows a little bit of signal to come in. You get a tiny bit of a rear lobe on there. And it adds to really this more of an omnidirectional capture of your low end, especially at a distance. So you do get a little bit of a cleaner, tighter low end, I feel, overall, with a cardioid-only mic. And with a cardioid-only mic, you do not have the pattern, you don't have the pattern switch, but you also don't have the pad and the high pass. So you're eliminating part of the circuit that you probably won't use anyway. Because in voiceover, I mean, come on, let's be real, 99.99% of the time, you are using cardioid only, right? You might use figure eight from time to time, but I doubt you'll ever use Omni for voiceover unless you're doing you're capturing Walla with a bunch of people in a room or something like that. Special case. But if you're just doing regular voiceover or voice acting, you're in cardioid all the time. So when you eliminate all those parts from the circuit, it just makes the circuit more efficient. It's actually a better voiceover microphone because it's purpose designed just for this kind of thing, for cardioid only capture. So, and I feel like the way that the tuning of this mic overall really favors the voice. But I think that you could use it really like you would use any 87 in cardioid. So overall, yes, I do think that the Dachman U87Se is the sound of voiceover. And I'm really impressed with it. And at this price point, I mean, it's ridiculous. So, it's like one of these things where, quite honestly, like if I were to travel, when I went on vacation last year and I brought a little DIY 87 style mic, it was because I wasn't going to bring my 87. I wasn't going to let this bounce around in my luggage or have to worry about putting it in the hotel safe when I went out to dinner or something like that, right? So I'm not going to carry this around anywhere. This is staying here. But, something like this I would take. I could pack in a travel kit and feel confident that I'm going to get the sound that I need and, remotely, without having to worry about damaging my, my way too expensive recording tool over here. So I think it's a great backup, because I think the other thing, too, that always worries me when you get a microphone is if you're using it a lot and all of a sudden, for whatever reason, it doesn't work or it's not available to you or whatever. You need a backup. You definitely need a backup in voiceover. In professional voiceover, you need to have a backup plan. So if you don't have a backup plan, you could, So I think that as a backup, as a travel mic, as a main mic, I mean, I think this works. So I think there are a lot of great use cases for it. So the Dachman U87Se, what do you think of this mic? All right? Let me know in the comments. All right, until next time, this is Mark Yoshimoto and MCOF, fading to black.